demonstrate how we can use an eclipse chart as a natal, as a natality, for an example, to forecast an event, a major event. As you've seen, I have a number line from 0 to 29. Let me explain why that is. So even though there are 12 signs of the zodiac, no matter where you find a planet stationed in the chart, it's going to be stationed at a degree between 1 and 29. So for the sake of condensing the chart down, I made this aspectarian. This is the aspectarian I use when I'm doing readings on a normal level too. The black chart is for January 31st, 2018. We had a lunar eclipse. Eclipses have always been used by ancient man to predict the mundane events in the kingdoms or for the countries involved. And they're excellent tools for mundane astrological breakdown. We say mundane astrology, that's the branch of astrology that deals with the world as opposed to looking at birth charts and people. All right? On the bottom, we have a chart for February 14th. (2018), and this is the Parkland, Florida school shooting. Okay, you might want to look at this chart yourself. Okay, if you don't have software or you don't own an ephemeris. The Swiss ephemeris, S-W-I-S-S, ephemeris, can be found online. And what an ephemeris is, it's a table with the dates and the positions of every planet for every date. A lot of ephemerises are 100 years or wider. An ephemeris for the 19th century, 18th century, an ephemeris for the 20th century, 21st century. But if you look online, you Google ephemeris, you should be able to find one, all right? What the ephemeris does is it gives you the position of the planets. In this example, we're looking at the indications given for January 31st, 2018, all right? An eclipse is said by Ptolemy, a classical Egyptian astrologer, all right? Hellenist Egyptian astrologer. Ptolemy compiled some astrological information, and he said that a lunar eclipse lasts for as many months as it does hours in real life. So 1 hour equals 1 month, basically. 2 hours equals 2 months, 3 hours equals 3 months. And fractally, you have to compute it. But the point in this demonstration is to show you how the transiting sky, which is depicted in green, for February 14th, gave us a means by which to see ahead of time the Parkland, Florida school shooting. Okay? Now, on the day of the eclipse, Mars was located at 3 degrees Sagittarius, and Saturn was located at 4 degrees, right? They were about 1.6 degrees apart in the sky, you know, but they were close enough to have an effect on one another. Those two planets are considered in astrology to be the bringers of bad news. They're malefics. In Hindu astrology, they call these planets harm doers, so the indicators of harm, all right? And they do the same thing in Western astrology too. And they're not always the indicators of harm. Mars represents motivation. It also represents the correct execution of will. In this case, we're looking at it in its malefic indications, all right? We see the position of Saturn at 4 degrees, the ascendant at the time of eclipse in the location of Parkland, Florida, was at 5 degrees. The sun and the moon, all over the world, were located at 11 degrees and 37 minutes. The sun in Aquarius, the moon in Leo. They're a perfect opposition. All right. Neptune was at 12 degrees. The midheaven in Parkland, Florida, at the time of the eclipse, was at 13 degrees of Sagittarius. All right. The North Node was located at 14 degrees Leo. Venus was at 16 degrees Aquarius. Pluto was at 19 degrees Capricorn. Jupiter was at 21 degrees Scorpio. Uranus at 24 degrees, almost 25 degrees of Aries. Chiron was located at 25 degrees, 44 minutes of Pisces. And Mercury was in the very last degree, very last minute of Aquarius, about to make its transition into the sign of Aquarius, right? It was at the end of Capricorn, pardon, okay? Now, that chart, if we use Claudia Ptolemy's rules, that eclipse lasted for about 3.5 to 4 hours, all right? From the prenumbral, from the beginning of the prenumbral to the exact perfect eclipse to the end of the prenumbral. But since I'm only using one event, that time period at this point is not pertinent to our examination, okay? What I wanted to examine is the fact that the eclipse took place at 11 degrees of Aquarius and Leo. All right? And when Mars crossed over the 11th degree of Sagittarius, which sextile Aquarius and trine Leo. It sextiled the place of the sun and it trined the place of the moon. I want people to understand that aspects are aspects in astrology. In other words, they might call the sextile, the trine, good aspects because from them are expected fortunate circumstances. It's an easy transfer of energy, really. And because of that easy transfer of energy, it's considered good. I'm going to give you an example, okay? Mercury is the indicator of human thought processes. Saturn is the indicator of the ability to concentrate and focus the mind on a specific subject. So a person who is born with Mercury, sextile, or trine Saturn is said to have a natural ability to concentrate and to exercise the mental capacity to concentrate or to do mathematical equations and things of this nature with relative ease, all right? Whereas a person born with Mercury in opposition, 180 degrees from Saturn, or Mercury at 90 degrees at a square from Saturn, that these people have to put extra energy or make extra effort to exercise mental focus and concentrate under pressure, right? Now, that may be true for psychological analysis and interpretation in astrological measure, but when we're looking at the world, this example proves that the aspect itself is enough. Now, let me explain to you what an aspect is, okay? An aspect is a distance in a circle, it's an angle, from one planet to the next, okay? And 30-degree fractals, or multiples of 30-degree fractals, are what create the aspects, all right? In a sextile, you have two 30-degree fractals, and therefore a sextile is considered to be a 60-degree angle, all right? You have you have four of them, pardon me, in a trine, and therefore a trine is a 120-degree aspect. Now, what's so special about this observation is that we're using a malefic planet, Mars. Mars is the one creating this aspect to the sun and the moon, all right? And let's examine the nature of the attributions or the indications of Mars. Okay? Astrology is a language. Celestial science is translated into language, right? So Mars holds a variety of keywords, all right? Keywords like motivation, like speed, all right? Like action, like militaristic action, competition, anger, irritation, annoyance, things of this nature. But in a worldly sense, Mars, most simplistically, Mars points to war, conflict, violence, assault. It deals with weapons, shooting, attack, force, police. Do you get the picture? Mars also anatomically deals with blood and bleeding, wounds, right? Soldiers, crisis, an emergency. See? These are just what I've written here, 14 keywords for Mars that manifested on this day. Specifically, on the day that Mars formed a perfect aspect to the sun and the moon as they were placed in the eclipse chart. This is how astrologers make predictions, all right? The sun and the moon mundanely point to male and female. Okay? The moon points to one's sense of family, mothers, which includes grandmothers, aunts, or any type of mother figure, right? The male, the sun, points to fathers, authority figures. It also points to children. So, this is just a very general, brief expose of the keywords that these planets give indications, right? When we look at the Mars keywords that dealt with violence, crisis, emergency, weapons, etc. You hear these keywords and you conceptualize them into a sentence or a paragraph. You begin to explain the events that occurred on this day. Mars had reached the sun and moon degree of the eclipse chart in its transit. There are 4 exact aspects made on this day, all right? Not just for Mars. Venus had progressed to the eclipse Saturn station. The moon had progressed to the midheaven station. Uranus had progressed to the Chiron station. So let's look at these planets for what they represent, okay, and the signs that they're in, all right? Venus equals legal matters and government, legality, government, all right? Saturn has to do with security, has to do with rules, regulations. Saturn also points to loss, disappointment, and discipline. And this event directly created the outcry for the government to create more regulations because of the disappointment, because of the disgrace. This also occurred in the sign of Sagittarius. Okay? It points to legislation, or the legislative branch of government, okay, where they make the law, right? It points to schools. Schools of every sort, elementary schools, high schools, colleges. It points to the faculty of these schools and the act of studentry, okay? Just the general environment that you can visualize when you conceptualize a school, all right? It's everything that Sagittarius represents, all right? So they talk about higher restrictions, and because Saturn and Mars were conjunct in the eclipse chart, Mars also weapons, restrictions on weapons in schools, and they beseech the government to make these rules. And you see that all throughout the media. Mars, running on, we already covered that. And since we already covered Mars, the Sun, and the Moon, let's go to the next one. We got the transiting Moon, which acts as a timer in Aquarius, right? And Neptune at the 13th degree, Neptune in Pisces, okay? Aquarius deals with the masses of people. Pisces and Neptune both point to a fear factor, a terrorism factor. And this is an incident where the people were terrified or terrorized. Okay? That is the aspect that the Moon and Neptune threw onto the midheaven. The midheaven deals with the public. What astrologer and what witness or what person having knowledge of this event would not give credit to or credibility to the fact that it did happen in public? And because it happened in Sagittarius schools, and it was at a public school. You see? This is how the astrological language gives us a knowledge of events. The next aspect we're dealing with here is a semi-quincunx, okay? Aspect equals 30 degrees between transiting Uranus in Aries and eclipse Chiron in Pisces. All right? Now, this aspect here, the 30-degree aspect, puts one planet 30 degrees away from the other, which astrologically speaking points to a 12th house position and a first house position, or a first house position and a second house position. All right? So this is what gives us the understanding of what this aspect means when we consider what the 12th house and the first house represent and how they work together. And when we consider what the first house is and the second house and how they work together. The 12th to the first house aspect deals with events of a karmic nature. And the first and the second house point to matters of materialism, but also morality. And this is definitely an issue that people would point to as karmic. If you've studied the charts of violent events and violent exchanges between people, you find this aspect to be very prominent between them. All right? Some astrologers would go so far as to say that when a person's sun, two people have the sun in one degree, in one house in front of the other person's sun, or one house behind the other person's sun, that this represents a karmic relationship. Okay? So when we look at this event, it has a lot to do with the karma of the country. And it's in the sign of Aries. Aries is the sign ruled by Mars. And therefore, Aries also points to violence, warring, assaults, weapons. You see? Uranus deals with sudden, unexpected events that affect masses of people, crowds. You see? And we see sudden violence occurring, an unexpected assault, occurring with masses of crowds. This is just one aspect of how the Uranus and Aries indication on the sign of, on the planet of Chiron. Chiron deals with wounds. Chiron and Pisces. It deals with wounds, Chiron. How we deal with wounds. Okay? Not necessarily how the wound was caused, but how it is treated. Therefore, it deals with therapy and recovery. Okay? And how the people are going to recover from this sudden violent act becomes an issue for the public in mundane terms. Pisces deals with fear, terror. Together, Chiron and Pisces and Uranus and Aries point to concealed weapons. As Uranus points to man-made objects, machinery, inventions, and things of that nature for violence, okay, Aries. And Chiron deals with recovery and Pisces deals with fear. So we're talking about how we're going to recover from this surprise attack, how we're going to prevent more of them from occurring, all right? Then this entire chart and the comparison between the January 31st eclipse and the February 14th transit chart show the relationship of what would come to the fore in society. Okay, so this is February the 14th and Mars was located here. What we would do as astrologers is we would track the motion of these planets in the transiting or the green chart against the positions of the planets in the eclipse chart. The eclipse chart here is being used like a natal chart. It's stationary, all right? And it is the format. It is the primary chart from which we look for the positions of planets to be in. And this is the moving chart, transits. And what we've observed when we go through the ephemeris or when we fast forward the motion of our solar system, that as Mars was here on February 14th, we know that it would have been here on the 15th. It will be here on the 16th and the 17th. Then it moves to this station, 14 degrees, on the 19th of February. Then it moves to the 16th degree on the 22nd. Then it moves to the 19th degree and conjuncts Pluto on the 27th. And that it conjuncts the Jupiter, or in this number line it conjuncts the Jupiter station on March the 2nd. And that it rolls into the 24th degree, or the Uranus station from the eclipse chart, on March the 8th. That it rolls over the Chiron station in the eclipse chart on the 9th. Then it rolls over the Mercury station on March the 16th. Now, what an astrologer is going to do is he's going to look at the charts for each one of these motions, for each one of these days, looking for other connections between other planets in the charts for these days and this eclipse chart for further indication over a period of about 3 or 4 months, because this eclipse itself is about 3 or 4 hours long. And any connection that Mars or any other planet makes is going to give us some indication as to what is going on in the world. All right? For the sake of brevity, I only use the planet Mars. We have, and we would use faster moving planets. We would use Mercury, we would use the Sun, we would use the Moon. Right? In the course of 2.5 days, the Moon runs through all of these. In the course of a month, the Sun is going to roll through all of these. All right? In the course of about a month and a half, Mars is going to run through all of these. Right? So, and throughout the year, right, as the Sun, when the Sun goes into the next sign, it's going to be at 0 degrees. It's going to hit 3 degrees. 3 degrees later, then it's going to aspect the Mars degree in the eclipse chart. So there are potential dates for forecasting events depending on the nature of the planets involved, right? I hope I gave clear enough distinction as to how that is done with this. One of my students called me and asked about the eclipse indications that were made with regards to the shooting event, and I decided to share the discussion that I had with him, with you all. That's the end of today's example, all right? I hope it was clear for you. You know, I'll be making more videos soon, elaborating on the method of measuring eclipses, delineating the planets. Check my other videos, share them with other people, visit my website, the link is right below, and peace. Now some of y'all might be asking, those of you who don't have any experience, how would I know, or what tools would I use other than my naked eye, without astronomy skills, to measure what degree any particular planet is and where it is moving, all right? You have what they call an ephemeris. All right? The ephemeris is a book or a table of planetary motion that uses dates and the positions of the planets to let you know where Mars is day by day. Or you can use software. If you don't have your own software to pull up the chart for any given date to see where the planets are zodiacally or in the zodiac, then you can look online for the Swiss ephemeris, or you can go to astro.com. They have a free chart maker there. Subscribe to my YouTube channel or visit the website, link down in the bottom. And don't forget to share it. Tell a friend, tell a friend. Tell them to come visit my page. I'll sharpen their game right on up phone. You know what I mean? Come and see me. Check my page, all right? If you want to know a little bit more about cosmophysics and how I apply the science of astrology, check out my videos here. Subscribe to my channel, all right? Visit often. Leave your comments. I can interact with you. Visit my website, Cosmophysics.